Whether you're stuck in traffic, hitting the gym, or just winding down, we are here to spill the hottest tea from your favorite Bravo shows. From the wildest reunions to the quietest social media unfollows, we cover it all. So welcome back to Reality TV Podcast and Clips. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's get into it on 3, 2, 1.
So today we're really pulling together a whole bunch of recent updates, and we're going to be dissecting a lot of material that covers the whole spectrum of reality TV life.
It feels like we're seeing everything at once.
Exactly. From these really profound personal crises, addiction, separation, mental health struggles, all the way to the huge on-screen fights and, maybe more importantly, the off-screen price of fame.
Which can be so high. We're talking legal threats, safety concerns, all of it.
All of it. So this deep dive is really designed to get past the headlines and help you understand what's really going on. We're going to move through it logically, starting with the stories where the curtain is pulled back the furthest.
Okay, so let's start with what has to be one of the most raw accounts we've seen from a Bravo celebrity. We're diving into the details from Carl Radke's new book. I mean, the level of self-inventory here is just staggering.
It really is. And it provides so much context for everything we've watched on Summer House over the years. He details this long history with substance abuse, alcohol, cocaine, Adderall.
And this wasn't just, a guy in his late 20s partying for a TV show. This goes way back.
Way back. He talks about using cocaine his sophomore year of college, using Adderall to pull all-nighters for finals, and then weed just to kind of manage the stress. The pattern was set really early on.
And it got dark pretty fast even back then. He details this whole cycle with body image issues that was tied directly to his use.
Yeah, that part was tough to read. He'd get high, binge eat, and then get hit with this wave of guilt and fear about gaining weight, which led to him purging.
Which is such a vicious hidden cycle. On the outside, it's just another college kid partying, but internally, he's in this loop of shame and self-destruction.
And that was fully in place by the time he joined Summer House. I mean, the emotional labor it took for him just to film that show, it's unbelievable.
He calls it a secret life inside the house.
It was. Waking up with his hands shaking so bad he needed a drink just to steady them, hiding bottles around the house. He even admits that the pre-games, the things that look so fun on TV.
We weren't for fun for him.
Not at all. He says he was pre-gaming specifically to take the edge off, just to try and quiet the panic and anxiety that came with being on camera, which of course just fed the addiction.
That is. The very thing that was supposed to make him feel comfortable enough to film was actually his addiction at its worst. He describes hiding in the bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror, bloodshot eyes.
Splashing water on his face, giving himself these little pep talks just to make it through a weekend shoot. The person we saw on screen was literally fighting, hour by hour, to keep it together.
It really makes you think about the whole environment of a show like that. It doesn't just tolerate heavy drinking. It almost requires it. It rebrands this dangerous behavior as just party culture.
It absolutely enabled it. The pressure to perform, to be on, just amplified his need to self-medicate. It was a feedback loop that made getting sober while he was in that house basically impossible.
And outside the house, his life was just as chaotic. He talks about some really traumatic events that just kept fueling relapses.
Right, like the DUI he got after his college years. He was pulled over after cutting off a police car, and in this moment of just pure panic, he started shoving pennies in his mouth.
I remember reading that because he'd heard this urban legend that the copper would mask the smell of alcohol.
Exactly. I mean, the desperation in that one detail, it tells you everything about how deep he was in trying to hide his reality from everyone.
And the trauma just kept compounding.
Yeah.
He mentions 2 other really devastating incidents.
Yeah. The first was a non-consensual sexual encounter. He was blackout drunk, and an older man who had some professional power over him touched him sexually. A complete violation when he was at his most vulnerable.
And then, separately, he witnessed a man fall to his death in the Bahamas.
Which he says was a major PTSD trigger. He's very clear that his substance use just skyrocketed after that. He was just desperately trying to numb everything.
So with that context, a storyline from an early season of the show lands so differently now. I'm thinking of the moment with Stephen McGee.
Oh, absolutely. Season 2. At the time, it was framed as just, regular caster drama. But for Carl, it was something else entirely.
Stephen basically brought up that private sexual encounter, suggesting Carl was lying about his sexuality.
And that's just a textbook example of trauma being weaponized for a reality TV storyline. Carl says having that painful, private moment dragged out for entertainment, with the cast speculating about him. It made him feel victimized again.
And his response was to retreat and use again.
Immediately, he ordered alcohol and cocaine to try and numb that feeling of being so horribly exposed.
The cycle just continued, and it really culminated with the death of his brother Curtis from an overdose. We saw that play out on season 5.
A truly tragic, harrowing dose of reality on a reality show. Carl said the funeral just destroyed him. He gave the eulogy, but the pain was so overwhelming that right after, he went to a bar and just got wasted. A pointless attempt, in his words, to dull it all.
That's the definition of a grief-driven relapse spiral, which led him to what he calls his darkest moment, right before he finally turned a corner.
Right. This was just before he got sober for good. He was in such turmoil that he put in this massive cocaine order. He specified 3 giant jars, saying it was enough for a football team.
And 2 days later, that was it. His first day of sobriety.
It's such a common narrative in recovery, isn't it? Hitting that absolute destructive peak right before the turning point. The sheer quantity he mentions just underlines the crisis he was in.
And now, he's so strong in his recovery. He's even opened Soft Bar, a non-alcoholic place for people to gather. But of course, that journey got incredibly complicated by his relationship with Lindsay Hubbard.
Well, and he's pretty self-aware about that. He stands by the decision to end the engagement, but he also admits that he probably shouldn't have jumped into a serious relationship so early in his sobriety. He says he wouldn't advise someone else to do it before hitting that 1-year mark.
Because the public fallout from that breakup was just immense.
Right.
And it put his mental health in a really dangerous place.
The public nature of it just amplified everything. He said canceling the wedding was heartbreaking on its own, but then dealing with the backlash led to days where he questioned whether I wanted to be on this earth anymore.
That is so scary to hear.
It is, waking up every day to just a firestorm of criticism online, seeing his name next to words like lies and manipulation, people questioning his sobriety. He said the noise was unbearable.
And he felt that all that conflict, all that misunderstanding from the public was a direct threat to his stability.
Which is why he stands by the decision. He says that despite loving Lindsay, the dynamic was unhealthy. There was a pattern of conflict, a lack of trust, communication breakdowns, things that even couples therapy couldn't fix.
So his thinking was really long-term.
Entirely. He didn't want to get married just to end up in a messy, painful divorce later. He saw ending it then as preventing a much bigger catastrophe down the road. It was a painful choice, but it was about prioritizing his stability and his mental health.
That's a level of maturity that really speaks to how far he's come. But that emotional weight, the suicidal ideation from public scrutiny, it's a very heavy place to start.
Yeah.
And it transitions us to another star dealing with a huge public and private disruption.
Right. Britt Eady from The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Her separation is happening right in the middle of this massive legal fight with the very people who make her show.
So she announced her separation from her husband, Mike Cunningham, on social media. After 5 years of marriage, she said she was ringing in the new year as a single woman and was done hurting.
And she was very, very deliberate about how she framed it.
Yeah, she was. She tied it directly to her personal boundaries, her triggers. She specifically named disrespect.
She did. She said, she's usually pretty easygoing, but the second she feels disrespected, her peace is gone and her soft version turns sharp real quick. So this is about protecting her peace and focusing on her own growth.
What I found interesting was how she immediately got out ahead of the rumors.
Oh, she totally controlled the narrative. She said flat out that even though she can't stand him right now, they're not going to create some false narrative that she's leaving because of any fake made-up rumors.
So she's making it clear this is about their internal dynamic, not some external scandal.
Exactly. And you have to see this in the larger context of what's going on in her public life, which is this huge lawsuit against Bravo and the production company, Truly Original.
Which is a really big deal. That lawsuit is for defamation, sexual harassment, creating a hostile work environment.
And it all stems from that incident on the show where Kenya Moore showed explicit photos that Britt claimed were not of her. So the lawsuit is the result of that very public, very intense violation.
Can we just unpack that for a second? What does it actually mean for a star to be suing the production company that films them?
I mean, it creates an almost impossible situation. Truly Original is the company on the ground doing the day-to-day filming, editing the footage, crafting the storylines.
They control her entire image on the show.
Completely. So she's alleging serious wrongdoing by the very people who hold her employment and her reputation in their hands. It's not just a cast feud anymore. It's a high-stakes legal war with her employer all while she's navigating a public separation. It's an incredible amount of pressure.
Wow. Okay, so from deep personal trauma and legal fights, let's pivot a bit. We're now going to look at some of the current high-intensity conflicts that are playing out very publicly, mostly on social media.
And we're starting in Orange County with a really aggressive feud between two alums over, of all things, plastic surgery and professional ethics.
We're talking about Alexis Bellino and Dr. Jen Armstrong. And this all kicked off because Dr. Jen, who was on for a season, decided to do a social media analysis of Alexis's face.
Yeah, she posted a video comparing a photo of Alexis from about a decade ago with the recent one, and it was basically this unsolicited public diagnosis of her face.
Right. She immediately questioned Alexis's old claim about having a sinus surgery. Dr. Jen pointed out that you'd seen ENT for that, not a plastic surgeon, and then just flat out alleged her nose is different.
And the analysis was so detailed. She's pointing out how Alexis's nose looks narrower, which she says makes her eyes look closer together. She's speculating about the space between her nose and mouth, a possible brow lift.
And the volume loss, that was a big part of it. She said Alexis used to have this apple cheek, but now looks more skeletonized and thinned out.
And this is the really wild part, she starts offering unsolicited professional recommendations to her followers, saying Alexis needs a brow lift, lid tightening, Sculptra for volume.
Okay, you just said a word that a lot of people hear but might not know what it is. What is Sculptra, and why would Jen recommend that specifically over, say, a normal filler?
That's a great question. So Sculptra is totally different from a hyaluronic acid filler like Juvederm. Those just inject a gel to add volume instantly. Sculptra is polylactic acid, and it's a collagen stimulator.
So it makes your body do the work.
Exactly. You inject it, and over a few months, it encourages your own body to produce more collagen. So for someone she's describing as skeletonized, it makes sense she'd suggest it because it provides a more global, natural-looking volume restoration over the whole face rather than just filling one line. It's for reversing that overall thinness.
Understanding that makes her public critique feel even more clinical and, frankly, ethically questionable.
Oh, massively. She's using her medical license to publicly diagnose someone from photos to create social media content. It's a huge gray area at best.
And Alexis, not surprisingly, was furious.
Immediately. She went on her Instagram story, calling her this doctor, and just insisted Jen knows nothing about her medical history.
And she was pretty strategic about it. She admitted to some things to seem credible.
Very. She said Botox, yes, but then went hard on the denial for fillers, writing in all caps, but do not believe her.
The denial then turned into an accusation.
It did. She accused Jen of just using her name for publicity, for clout, and spreading false information. She made it very clear she would never let Jen touch my face, hands, foot, hair, nothing.
And then the offer, which was the most dramatic part of the whole thing.
Right. Offering to give fans her all records via DM to prove the truth. Using your confidential medical records as the ultimate comeback in a social media fight. It just shows how high the stakes are when it comes to appearance in that world.
The stakes are always high. And speaking of high stakes and legal lines, let's head over to Potomac for another intense off-season battle involving Ashley Darby.
This one started when Ashley responded to some really nasty comments Charisse Jackson Jordan made on a podcast. Charisse went in hard.
She used words like tacky and incestuous to describe Ashley, because Ashley had talked about a fling with Charisse's 27-year-old son, Jackson.
And Charisse didn't stop there. She also accused Ashley of just making up storylines for the show. So Ashley's response was pretty calculated. She started with some general shade.
Yeah, she said she finds it very odd when people get all buck when the cameras go down, basically accusing Charisse of being brave only when they're not filming.
Classic. But then she got very serious and drew a very clear legal line in the sand in response to that word incestuous.
She did. She made a point to say she is a consenting adult engaging with other consenting adults. Why was that her focus? Why shut down that specific word so forcefully?
Because incestuous is a legally and morally toxic word. Incest is a crime. It implies a relationship between close family members, while Charisse was probably just using it for dramatic effect to say it felt wrong to her.
Ashley wasn't taking any chances.
None. By saying she abides by the law, she's shutting down any possible interpretation that she did something criminal. She's neutralizing the accusation, forcing everyone to see it as just inflammatory name-calling, not a real claim of wrongdoing. It was very smart.
Super smart. And then she just ended it by saying she'd be parched and ready at the reunion.
But then, on a completely different note, Ashley gave this incredibly vulnerable look into her life when she talked about co-parenting with Michael Darby.
Yeah, that was really honest. She said it's just not getting easier. She'd heard from friends that it would eventually even out, but for her, she still just deeply misses her kids when they're with their dad.
And she clarified it's not that she doesn't want them with Michael, she's happy they have that time. But it doesn't stop her from missing them. And she said that feeling just gets stronger as they get older and more interactive.
That honesty, right next to the high drama legal defense, it's such a powerful reminder of the balancing act these women are constantly performing.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move now to a place where high conflict met high fashion. The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City trip to Greece.
Oh boy. The setting was gorgeous, right? They were there for an epic Greek photo shoot, designer toga dresses, the whole thing.
The whole thing. But the group dynamics just led to total chaos and public embarrassment.
And it started right away. Angie gets a breakfast tray to the face. The trip was doomed from the start.
It really was. But the real chaos came when they started fighting so loudly they got kicked out of 2 different places.
2. First, a spa for being too loud in the quiet zone, and then a restaurant.
And the ultimate moment of shame had to be the waiter at the restaurant muttering in Greek about how relieved he was when they finally left. When the locals are celebrating your departure in their native tongue, you know you've messed up.
And this chaotic setting was the perfect backdrop for all the drama around Meredith Marks and her marriage to Seth.
For sure. The chaos just seemed to make everyone more worried about Meredith's stability. Mary Cosby said she was concerned about Meredith's erratic behavior, calling her fragile and saying she's clearly going through something.
Mary even compared it to her own son, saying she sees similar mood swings and rage, and she thinks Meredith needs help.
And Whitney agreed. She said she'd been worried about Meredith's volatility for a while, so there was this genuine concern, but it was happening in this pressure cooker.
And then Bronwyn threw a huge log on the fire with some infidelity tea.
A huge log. Bronwyn said she ran into Seth Marks in New York earlier in the year and saw him with another woman in the restaurant.
Which, of course, makes Meredith's super defensive stance on her marriage seem suspicious.
Exactly. Bronwyn pointed that out. The more Meredith fiercely insists everything is perfect, the more the group suspects something is deeply wrong.
While all this marital drama was swirling, Bronwyn actually got a call that showed a really nice, supportive side of her own life.
Yeah, her husband Todd was back home helping her mom with a complicated house sale. It was this rare glimpse of him as the family guy, which Bronwyn said she was really grateful for. A nice, healthy contrast to all the other drama.
But the main event of the trip, this central conflict, was the accusation leveled at Brittany Bateman.
It all started at the spa, where Brittany was apparently annoying people by splashing. But it exploded later in the van when Lisa just came out and asked aloud if Brittany was an alcoholic.
And she claimed she'd heard that Brittany was drinking on the yacht trip until she'd throw up and then start drinking again.
And Brittany was, understandably, shocked. Like, why are you bringing up this incredibly serious accusation weeks later in the middle of a fight?
And this is where the game of telephone gets really messy.
It's so messy. Meredith admits she heard the info first and told Lisa. But Bronwyn, who was Brittany's roommate, clarified. She said, yes, Brittany threw up a lot, but she denied ever saying she was an alcoholic.
So Bronwyn is basically pointing the finger at Meredith, saying Meredith is the one who added that clinical damaging label when she passed the rumor to Lisa.
Right, it's weaponizing language. She drank too much and got sick is gossip. She's an alcoholic is a serious accusation. And Whitney immediately called out the double standard.
Yeah, she pointed out how they were all walking on eggshells around Meredith's behavior, but Lisa felt totally fine calling Brittany an alky-lush based on a rumor.
It's the core of their group dynamic, isn't it? This conditional loyalty. We protect our inner circle, but we'll use anything against an outsider. Lisa did eventually apologize, probably realizing she'd crossed a line.
But the fight just pivoted. It didn't end.
Not at all. It immediately became this weird status competition. Heather, trying to defend Brittany, said she was more accomplished than most of us.
Which Bronwyn called a weird statement. And Lisa took it as a direct threat.
Oh, instantly. She just starts rattling off her own accomplishments, her businesses. It just showed that underneath all the drama, there's this deep, toxic insecurity and a constant need to reestablish the hierarchy.
And that high-volume, competitive energy is exactly why they got kicked out of the restaurant in the first place.
Exactly. And the fallout from this trip didn't stay in Greece. It directly impacted Brittany's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Jared Osman, who spoke out about the whole experience.
He sounds like he really regrets it. He said he hates even talking about being on the show and feels like he was just labeled the villain.
And he said he was reluctant from the start. Brittany got the call, and he was just kind of pulled into it.
And his family's reaction was not good.
Not good at all. He said his whole family hated it. People asking, what are you doing? Why are you putting our family name on a show like this?
Even his uncle, Donnie Osmond, had a reaction.
A very clear one. Jared called it a what the feck reaction. Donnie said publicly that he didn't like it, but, Jared's a big boy and can make his own choices. That kind of public family disapproval, especially from a family like the Osmonds, adds a whole other layer of pressure.
And Jared also talked about the leaked DMs, where he called Brittany damaged and unstable.
He expressed so much regret over that. He said he retracted it, but he learned the hard way about the digital footprint. Once you send it, it's out there forever.
Did he explain why he sent them?
He said it came from a place of anger and this broken heart after they'd been fighting, but he also confirmed that Brittany played it up like she was a girlfriend for the show and that she actively creates drama to stay relevant, which is a huge peek behind the curtain.
It really is. The incentive is to create conflict to get screen time. Okay, let's pivot from that kind of reality check to another.
Yeah.
The public display of wealth and the reaction it gets. We have to talk about Antonia Gorga's Christmas.
Oh, yes. Antonia Gorga, Melissa and Joe's 20-year-old daughter, put her Christmas haul on TikTok. And the numbers are just mind-boggling. 114 gifts.
114. Valued at over $10,000.
And this wasn't just a bunch of small things. This was high-end designer stuff. A Cartier ring for almost $1,500, a Prada card holder for $650, a YSL belt for almost $600, and tons of stuff from Aritzia and Alo.
And the online reaction was, let's say, divided.
Deeply divided. You had one camp of people praising Melissa for her generosity, saying it was aspirational.
And then you had the other camp.
The other camp was very critical, people saying Antonia was too grown up for that many gifts, questioning if the family understood the meaning of Christmas, and a lot of comments suggesting they should have donated that money instead.
It's a perfect example of how, when you live on reality TV, a private family moment becomes a public referendum on your values, your parenting, your morality.
Every gift is scrutinized. Every purchase is a statement.
Absolutely. And finally, let's talk about the price of fame when it comes to actual physical safety. Paige DeSorbo from Summer House shared a really terrifying story.
She did. She revealed that she had a stalker situation recently, and it got so serious she had to involve the police.
She said she got a text that made her realize it was time to go to the police station and file an official report. And her expectation of what that would be like was shaped entirely by television.
Totally. She thought it would be like Law and Order. SVU, phones ringing, people yelling, drama. But the reality was the complete opposite.
She said the station was silent. You could hear a pin drop.
And when she explained her situation, a public figure with a stalker, the response from the officer at the window was just shockingly dismissive. Paige said the woman was basically like, "You're being dramatic. We'll keep an eye on it."
Wow. That gap between the seriousness of the threat and the bureaucratic apathy she faced is just... It's so disheartening. The system doesn't seem equipped to handle the unique threats that come with that kind of visibility.
Thankfully, she said the situation is under control now, but it's happening at the same time that her career is exploding. A podcast, a New York Times bestseller, Tonight Show appearances. Her success is built on the same visibility that created the threat.
But she's also been so smart about flipping the narrative. I'm thinking of her Daphne line.
It's brilliant. Fans called her the laziest girl in America because she was always retreating to her bedroom on the show. So she built a brand around the idea that nothing bad happens when I'm in my bedroom.
Oh.
It's such a powerful way to reclaim criticism and turn it into a successful business.
So when we pull all of this together, what's the big picture?
I think the overarching theme is this constant, painful tension between the glossy, high-conflict entertainment we watch, the chaos in Greece, the fights over plastic surgery, and the very real, very serious things happening when the cameras are off.
The emotional complexity is just immense. You have Carl Radke's profound vulnerability about addiction and suicidal thoughts in the same universe as the almost comical status anxiety of the Salt Lake City cast.
Right. And the cost of that public life is just so clear. For Paige, it was her privacy and safety. For Carl, it was a decade-long battle for his sobriety, fought in the public eye.
And we've seen over and over how private trauma becomes public drama. A castmate weaponizes a secret, like with Carl, or you have to sue your own production company, like Britt. The visibility that makes them famous is the same thing that magnifies their pain.
It's a vicious cycle.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to reflect on. When a reality star shares a genuine, difficult struggle like addiction or deep mental health pain, does all the unavoidable noise of public debate and messy conflicts like Carl's breakup ultimately overshadow the importance of their recovery journey? Or does that public discussion, as messy as it is, maybe serve a higher purpose by normalizing the struggle for all of us watching at home?